welcome to the show. It is me, your girl, Labora Lee, aka Cat Lee, and you have now tuned in to Ambitiously, the podcast. Yes, you have. Welcome, my ambitious ones, to another episode of Hood History. Hood History, if you don't know, is a segment of Ambitiously the podcast where we break down certain things in history. There's no chronological order. We just pick things in history that we want to talk about, and we talk about it. And we don't go by the book. We never will. Sorry. This episode of Hood History is called The Monumental City. Now, I told you before we were going to start with Baltimore and we'll branch out into other things, but I feel like my city has a very, one, my city is very historical, and two, the stories are something else, honey. So we are going to dive into this episode of Hood History with a city that most don't know about. It's called the Monumental City. We're going to talk about it. And the reason why it resonates with me specifically is that it speaks on the African American culture here in Baltimore, and it speaks on slavery at the time. So I'm going to take you back and we're going to talk about it. Let's get into it. The Monumental City. Okay, so the Monumental City. Not many know about the Monumental City. Most people who are from Baltimore, they know about Monument Street, but they don't know about the Monumental City. So we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to try to figure out why it was so monumental. But whatever. So the Monumental City, as it is known in the 1800s, specifically 1820s, was the headwaters of American human trafficking. The reason why we say it's headwaters is because Baltimore is a port city. Okay, like a lot of import goes on in this city, right? So, the traffic structural violence turned African American sons and daughters and wives and fathers into human products. Like we were on a fucking, excuse my language, but like we were on in the supermarket on the shelf. That's what we were at the time. One in seven enslaved African Americans were forced across state lines in the following decade. Yeah, it happened. It happened to us. In Baltimore, black people were jailed, sold, shipped in merchant vessels. Most were stolen from families by slave traders. But we're going to speak about this one particular dude because I think it's very important that we start with him. His name is Austin Woolfolk, or Woolfolk, however you say it. He was the mastermind of the market at the time. Just 19 when he arrived in Baltimore in 1815, the tall, athletic slave trader operated out of the city's tavern, handing banknotes to slaveholders thirsty for liquid assets. Woolfolk, or folk, depending on how you want to say it, came up in Tennessee, served in the state's militia, beginning during the War of 1812. I'm going to get to that War 1812 because I got a lot to say about that, and participated in the Battle of New Orleans. There he saw the fortunes to be made on the backs of African American or African descendant countrymen. The foreign slave trade was closed in 1808, yet planters demanded young bound workers for their cane breakers and cotton fields. So I told y'all in the last episode, sugar cane was big here. It's huge here. We're the hometown of Domino Sugar. Not many people know that. You buy Domino Sugar all the time when you go to the market. Well, welcome to Baltimore. As the demand rose in the Deep South for bondspersons, bond away from Eastern Seaboard homes, slave prices in New Orleans reached roughly twice what they were in Maryland. Yet there wasn't yet an exchange. They weren't ready for that kind of life. So Woolfolk, however you say it, was an entrepreneur with a gift for imagining a market before it existed, and then ushering in it, making it so that it was. His main innovation was an advertising in rapidly growing daily newspapers. Like, for example, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. Cash for car or gold today. Cash for, I hate this word, but cash for Negroes was his tagline. He soon became a brand, which is crazy that somebody could become a brand off of our backs, but it happened. It totally happened, and this is why we are the country we are today. It's just what happened. So let's get back into the story, because I told you I totally had a story to tell. So early on, he used Baltimore City Jail, which is gone now. They just demolished it because of recent situations that happened, to warehouse captives until shacking them together and force marching them to Georgia. So Baltimore City Jail was where he held them, and then he shackled them all together and he made them walk to Georgia. But as soon as cotton became the nation's biggest export, one of the biggest hot commodities of the time in the 1820s, he built his own jail and booked space aboard merchant ships. He built a reputation in New Orleans, site of the Deep South's largest slave market. It's crazy, right? See how, and you never know. Well, I'll tell you the story at the end of this, but so he and his brothers and other relatives arrived in Maryland to cash in on the profits. Him and allied traders set up purchasing agencies in Annapolis, Easton, and Washington, D.C. by 1821. Woolfolk's Baltimore headquarters included a whitewashed house, a private jail located on West Pratt Street. I showed y'all that in the last episode, but on West Pratt Street at the intersection of what is known today, and I showed you that on the map. Maybe I'll pull it back up. But what is known today as Martin Luther King Boulevard. So Pratt Street and Martin Luther King Boulevard, you can go pull up a map and you'll see where it was. That's where he housed his slaves. This is where he jailed them. And any archaeological remains are buried underneath the divided highway, because it's a huge highway. It's crazy. It was a far-flung enterprise. His uncle, John Woolfolk, set up a New Orleans and Natchez running a sale agency, selling people, acting like a bank, and remitting the tens of thousands of dollars, millions in today's money, that sustained a supply chain of captives. So basically, he was here, his uncle was in New Orleans, and it was a whole enterprise. The combination of newspaper advertising, financiering, and shipping, as well as elaborate corporate form for today, gave the family, it gave them something special. Competitive advantages that drove rivals out of the market. So yeah, they was like, maybe I'm trying to think like what's a pop. And okay, let's say they were like the Vanderbilts of their days, I guess. So some protested Cash for Blood, Green Baltimore's Niles Weekly Register, which is a newspaper, in 1921. Anti-slavery Quakers. Well, I'm gonna get to them too because we have a big Amish and then we have a big Quaker history as well. But anti-slavery Quakers arrived in Fells Point to